Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Merchant of Venice. Specifically we're going to be focusing on the key theme of family. Now this is an integral theme with the play as a whole, so it's really important that you go through some of the key quotations and also the typical questions that could come up in the exam. Now if you haven't done so already, please can you like and subscribe, it really does help us out when you do so. Look at the images and use them to recall the key themes in the play. So here are just some of the kind of things that we've went through in the past few videos on the Merchant of Venice. I want you to think about how are these conveyed in the play as a whole. So if you're not too sure what we're talking about, we have money. It's represented by the image on the left. In the middle is this idea of community or family. And then on the right hand side, we have this idea of revenge. Class feedback. Check your understanding against the ideas below. So think about some of the key themes. These are all of the things that you should be going through as you revise towards your GCSE exams. So if we think about the first key theme, this is arguably the most important theme in the whole play, is revenge. So if you think about the character of Shylock, he seeks revenge against Antonio due to his poor treatment of him. Money is obviously a very central theme within the actual play. So money is a key motivator for Bassanio and also creates conflict in the play. Family, which again is what we're going to focus on today. The values and expectations within families that are put under strain in the actual play. Now friendship. Antonio and Bassanio's friendship is a driving force in the play. Love, again very similar when you think about friendship and also family, so sometimes these two things or three things might merge together. Love is shown through multiple characters. And then finally prejudice, this is the conflict between the Jewish and Christian characters, fueled largely by Shylock's desire for revenge. Now this is always a good one to talk about because it's a key one when you think about the kind of context that was around with the play at the time as well. Okay. So before we move on then, I'd like to think about the stretch and challenge task. I want you to think about which theme have we covered so far and which one do you feel you need to spend more time going over. Now if there's any key element within the Merchant of Venice that you feel like you want extra help or support with, please feel free to get in touch. Leave us a comment down below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. How important is family in the play? Look at the list of characters and attempt the challenges that follow. So here we have then Jessica, Portia, Shylock, Gobbo, and Lorenzo. Now the first thing I'd like to think about is which of these characters are related to each other. So we mean in terms of are they related to each other in terms of family, in terms of marriage, in terms of friendship, would be slightly different to actually being related to each other, but still these bonds can have a big effect on them in the overall stake of the play. For the super challenge, we need to think about what kind of values or expectations would there be of family members during this time. And the mega challenge, are these values upheld by the characters? Try and justify your answer. So try and think about how they are perceived at the start of the play and whether they change or whether they actually progress as they move throughout the actual story. Context. Look at the contextual details and attempt the challenges that follow. Now, whenever we think about context, we always should be thinking about how does this apply to an exam question. We're going to be looking at that in a little bit of time. So it says then, in the last decade of the 16th century, it was considered normal for the upper class families to have arranged marriages. This was also accompanied by a dowry, which is a large amount of money, to seal the deal. The role of the father in the family was greatly respected. Portia, for example, follows her father's request even though he is dead. She says she has the will of a living daughter curbed by the will of a dead father. The other characters seem to have troubled relationships within their family, which causes drama for the audience at the time. So think about how they'd react watching this play unfold. A lot of the time the characters will go against their family values or they'll contradict what their fathers or other members of the family's actual wishes would be towards them. So it's important to think about how it would affect the audience at the time. Look at the exam question and attempt the challenges that follow. How has the theme of family been presented in The Merchant of Venice? So what I'd like to think about is I'd like to think back to the characters from the previous task and which ones would you talk about in the response to this question. Now not every single character needs to be mentioned, so it's really important that you think about which ones specifically relate to this question. Next is the super challenge. Can you recall any quotations to support this response? This is going to be absolutely integral to your writing, so if you can't remember any quotations, don't worry about it just yet. We will be going through them in a little bit of time. And then for the mega challenge, I want you to think about what kind of methods might you analyze for this response. So now what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at a number of quotations. We're going to have a few words or phrases missing from them, and the aim of the game would be, can you actually figure out the missing words or phrases to help you actually apply these to the question that we've just looked at. So the first one says, alack, what blank sin is it in me to be blank, to be my blank child. So I want you to spend your time now just having to think what might go into the space. If you can, kind of try and stretch and challenge yourself and think about what kind of part of the play might this be representing, or what character has said these words. Next one. O Lorenzo, if thou keep blank, I shall end this blank, become a Christian, and thy blank wife. So again, have a think what goes into the missing spaces, and if you can, think what part of the play is this from. Next we have, it is a wise blank that knows his own blank. So again, if you're not too sure what we mean by any of these quotations, don't worry about it too much. We'll be going through them in just a little bit. Next we have, but love is blank, and lovers cannot see the pretty blank that themselves blank. Thou callest me blank before thou hast a cause, but since I am a blank, beware my blank. The Duke shall grant me blank. So have a think about what will go into these spaces. It's also important to note that not every single quotation that we look at is going to be relevant to the question that we've just looked at. So it's important that you think about what would be the most judicious or most appropriate quotation to respond to the question. Next we have, I am bid forth to supper, Jessica. There are my blank, but wherefore should I go? I am not bid for love, thy blank me, but yet I'll go and hate to blank upon the blank Christian. So next we have, there do I give you and Jessica from the rich blank a special deed of blank after his blank of all he does possess of. Last feedback. Check your answers against the full quotations. If you do find that when we go through any of these that you got any of them wrong, don't worry about it too much. You can always go back, revise. That's the whole point of this. The more quotations you can remember, the easier it's going to be when you actually do the actual exam. So for number 1 then, we have, alack, what heinous sin it is for me to be ashamed to be my father's child. And that is from Jessica in Act 2, Scene 3. Number 2, O Lorenzo, if thou keep promise, I shall end this strife, become a Christian and thy loving wife. Again, another quotation from Jessica, Act 2, Scene 3. Number 3, it is a wise father that knows his own child. Number 4, but love is blind, and lovers cannot see the pretty follies that themselves commit. Another one for Jessica. And number 5, thou callest me dog before thou hast a cause, but since I am a dog, beware my fangs. The Duke shall grant me justice. Act 3, Scene 3 for Shylock. Again, as we said previously, not all of these quotations will actually help you to think about the question that we just looked at, but they're still really important quotations for the play as a whole and any other questions that could come up in the exam. So the next one then we have, I am bid forth to supper, Jessica. There are my keys, but wherein should I go? Next, number 7, I am not bid for love, they flatter me, but yet I'll go and hate to feed upon the prodigal Christian. It's Act 2, Scene 5. And the final one, there do I give to you and Jessica from the rich Jew a special deed of gift, after his death, all of he does possess of. Act 5, Scene 1. So now that we've looked at a few of the quotations, what I'd like to do is look back at the exam question and attempt the new challenges that follow. So again, the question was, how has the theme of family been presented in The Merchant of Venice? And our first challenge is, how confident do you feel about the question now that we've looked at a few of the quotations? Super challenge, can you identify 3 or more quotations to use to respond to this question? And then the final one, look at the response on the next slide to help you write your own response. So hopefully now you've got some idea of what kind of things you would include We're now going to look at an actual student example and see how that mirrors to the kind of ideas that you might be coming up with yourself. Look at the student response and attempt the challenges that follow. So it says then, Shakespeare is presenting the theme of family as problematic through the character of Jessica. This is seen in the quote, "Alack, what heinous sin it is for me to be ashamed to be my father's child." This shows that Jessica is feeling conflicted in the play. Contextually, she is compelled to honour and respect her father. However, the adjective sin implies a sense of guilt that she doesn't follow the expectations of the time and instead desires to be separate from her father and the way he acts. So the first thing I like to think about is this a good response? Try and justify your answer. So think about the actual assessment objectives that you may have gone through in class. Is it actually hitting all of the criteria, or are there a few things that need to be adapted or improved? Next, for the super challenge, can you identify where the student has linked context or language techniques? So again, we just mentioned the assessment objectives there. You do actually get marked on things like context and language, so it's important that you consider those when you're writing your own response. And finally, mega challenge, can you use this response to help respond to the exam question yourself? If you want to spend a bit more time looking through this, please feel free to do so. We're now going to jump ahead. So if you need any additional help or support, the new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, you can leave us a comment below or visit our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Thanks ever so much for listening, guys, and all the best with your work and revision in the future. Bye bye.